Imagine a world where the idea of fresh isn't the smell of soap, but the smell of dried herbs covering up the stink of 1,000 days without washing. In medieval England, a hot shower wasn't just a luxury. It was a death wish, a scary opening of the body's gates to the invisible killers carried on the wind. In the sharp cold of a medieval English morning, the routine begins not with the roar of a faucet, but with the quiet, shivering splash of water from a simple basin. For the average person in 14th century London or a drafty manor in Yorkshire, the idea of putting your whole body into a tub of hot water is strange, even reckless. Instead, the day starts with a dry wash. You would stand by your bedside, maybe on a floor covered with rushes that haven't been changed in months, and dip a piece of rough linen into cold water to wipe your face and hands. This is the only water you will probably touch today. The medical authorities of the time, haunted by the terrifying specter of the Black Death, give a grim warning. Hot water opens the pores. To them, a pore is not a way for skin to breathe, but a break in the castle walls of the body, a gap through which the miasma, the deadly pestilential air, can enter and rot you from the inside out. So a layer of grime is not seen as dirt, but as a protective seal, a shield against the plague. If you are part of the aristocracy, your hygiene depends almost completely on the purifying power of your linen undershirt. This is the great medical cheat code of the era, the belief that high-quality white linen works like a living sponge. The theory says that as you sweat, the linen pulls the impurities and toxins out of your pores and traps them in the fabric, basically cleaning the body without needing dangerous water. A nobleman might change this shirt 3 or 4 times a day, believing that the fresh, crisp fabric is scrubbing him clean, even though his skin is untouched by soap. This belief is so common that showing the bright white edge of a linen shirt becomes a status symbol, a public announcement that you are rich enough to be clean without getting wet. Meanwhile, dental hygiene is a rough, painful task. You don't reach for a toothbrush but for a rough linen cloth dipped in a harsh mixture of ground salt, crushed bone, or herbs. You scrub your teeth with this scratchy paste, hopping to scrape away the yellowing decay. If a tooth starts to rot, there is no gentle dentistry. The pain is blamed on a toothworm gnawing at the root, and the solution is often a pair of pliers in the hands of a barber surgeon with no anesthesia to quiet the scream. The smile you see in this era is rarely white, often full of gaps and always guarded. The air around you is thick, not with the scent of washed bodies but with the heavy, cloying perfumes of musk, rose water, and spices, put on liberally to cover up the unavoidable biological reality of a population that lives, sleeps, and works in its own unchanged skin. If not bathing is a quiet personal struggle, dealing with waste in medieval England is a loud, overwhelming disaster that attacks the senses from miles away. For a modern observer, the most shocking realization isn't the dirty faces, but the complete lack of the sanitary system we think of as a basic human right. To understand this reality, you must look first at the height of luxury, the castle. Here, the bathroom is called a garderobe, a polite name that literally means wardrobe. It is little more than a stone bench with a hole sticking dangerously out from the castle wall, hanging over a stagnant moat or a huge cesspit far below. There is no water to flush away the evidence. Gravity is the only thing working here. In the heat of summer, the rising air from the pile building up at the base of the castle walls is so strong it can make your eyes water. Yet in a strange twist of medieval creativity, this stench has a useful purpose. You would often find the nobleman's finest velvet robes hanging inside the same toilet room. Why? Because the sharp ammonia fumes rising from human waste are strong enough to kill the fleas and moths that ruin their fabrics. The toilet is, quite literally, the fumigation chamber. Step out of the castle and into the cramped, suffocating alleyways of a city like London, and the situation changes from uncomfortable to logistically terrifying. Ordinary people do not have the luxury of a moat. They depend on shared latrines or simple wooden buckets that are emptied into fast-filling backyard pits or, far too often, the open gutter. This city is a living organism that makes more filth than it can handle, and it depends on a shadowy group of men to keep it from drowning in it. These are the gong farmers. They are the unnoticed, tragic heroes of medieval sanitation, forced by law to work only under the cover of darkness so that polite society is spared the sight and smell of their work. Their job is the stuff of nightmares. They climb down into the suffocating blackness of the cesspits, often wading waist-deep in human waste to shovel out the city's filth by hand. It is a deadly job. The fumes in these enclosed, rotting spaces can be strong enough to kill a man instantly, suffocating him in the same filth he is trying to remove. Above ground, the fight is carried out with strict laws that are almost always ignored. While muckrakers are hired to scrape the streets, they are fighting a losing war against a flood of debris. The real street cleaners are the pigs, animals that wander freely through the towns, acting as living garbage disposals that eat the refuse and food scraps thrown from windows. But while they solve the food waste problem, they leave behind their own droppings, adding to the layer of muck that covers the cobblestones. The result is an air-filled cocktail so strong that travelers describe the smell of a medieval city as a physical blow. It is a mix of rotting straw, animal waste, and the sharp chemical bite of the tanners who collect urine and dog feces to treat leather in open vats. In this era, you don't just see the city, you breathe it in. The final piece of this gritty puzzle answers the question that troubles every modern mind when looking back at history. Without toilet paper, what happens when the job is done? The answer shows a reality that is as harsh as it is scratchy. In a world before soft tissue, the act of cleaning yourself is a hands-on bargain with nature. If you are wealthy, you might be lucky enough to use soft wool or scraps of linen, giving up fabric for comfort. But for most of the population, the peasant in the field or the worker in the town, the solution is whatever is within arm's reach. Moss, broadleaves, hay, and straw are the usual tools for the job. It is a cleaning experience that is both scratchy and hygienically questionable, often leaving behind as many problems as it removes. The Romans once used a sponge on a stick soaked in vinegar, but even that small technology has been lost over time, replaced by these cruder, more painful methods. This lack of proper sanitation creates a biological feedback loop that defines what life is like in this era. Because hands are rarely sterilized and wiping does not work well, the population lives in a constant cycle of reinfection with intestinal parasites. It is a grim fact of life that almost every adult you meet, from the blacksmith to the bishop, is carrying worms. These are the silent passengers of the Middle Ages, unseen organisms that live in the gut, eating part of the hard-earned calories that the peasant has worked all day to get. It is a parasite tax on the body, draining energy in a world where food is already scarce. Yet judging these people only by their dirt is to miss the amazing toughness that defines them. We must look at them not with disgust but with a sense of awe. Their immune systems are made strong in a fire of constant exposure, able to withstand bacterial loads that would probably put a modern person in the hospital within days. They are not uncaring about their suffering. They fight back with the only tools they have, a deep knowledge of herbal medicine and natural disinfectants like vinegar and alcohol. They are not dirty by choice, they are held back by the hard technological limits of their time. When we look back at the shadowy cathedral cities of medieval England, we shouldn't just see the lack of showers or the moss used instead of paper. We should see the huge effort it took to build a civilization and keep dignity in the face of biological chaos. The history of their hygiene is not a story of laziness. It is the history of a desperate, intense battle against their own biology, a battle for survival where cleanliness was the greatest luxury, bought with the hardest work imaginable.